At 10, it's a green gold rush. So profitable, now there's talk of moving from medical marijuana to no limits. 2 Works For You investigates the path that other states are already taking. I'm Karen Larson. You're watching 2 Works For You at 10. In less than 3 years, the Sooner State built the most medical marijuana dispensaries in the nation. 2 Works For You investigates and found businesses and the government are seeing significant profits, nearly $1 billion in cannabis sales. A green gold rush, making the prospect of becoming the 17th fully legal cannabis state enticing to those in the bud business. Our Mason Morrow explains why it could be here sooner than you think.
It's here. And it's in so much of the rest of the United States, it was bound to happen eventually.
Closing on $1 billion in the bank, the Oklahoma Medical Marijuana Authority licenses over 370,000 users. That's just from medical cannabis use.
I had no idea. I don't think anybody could have foreseen the success of the program.
Voters approved cannabis for medicinal sale and consumption in 2018. State legislators now inking a follow-up to State Question 788.
It at least starts a conversation.
State Representative Scott Fettgatter of Okmulgee hopped aboard the marijuana train after 788 passed. His self-acknowledged traditional values didn't align with the growth of marijuana in his red district, but it turns out his constituents don't agree.
I felt like it'd be a little hypocritical if I didn't give the industry the proper attention that it needed to be successful simply because of the fact that I didn't like the product that they sold.
So we take our raw cranberry seed
Now
oil.
Chip Paul, a medical marijuana activist who helps Oklahoma license holders, calls Fettgatter his point man in the state's House of Representatives. Well, the point man just penned 2 more medical marijuana bills passed by a House majority last week.
I started seeing, people who had real medical conditions, that this was changing their lives.
One of the minority nay votes against Fettgatter's House bills is Representative Stan May of Broken Arrow. He tells 2 Works For You these medical licensing bills are just the lead up to other legislation.
Recreational will probably happen also. I can't see enough opposition to it.
You're just not going to stop anybody from smoking or utilizing marijuana in whatever capacity they may want. And so you might as well regulated.
The state's medical marijuana market is generating nearly $195 million in tax revenue, according to the OMMA. In January alone, almost $12 million in tax money, which is 6% of the total marijuana tax revenue generated since 2018.
We will absolutely have the best medical marijuana program in the country.
Paul credits a lack of restrictions on commercial licenses and low-cost licensing fees.
If we went to a rec program, I could see that growing to, $2 to $3 billion industry.
Fettgatter filed an adult-use recreational bill for consideration this legislative session. It puts a 15% excise tax plus sales tax on recreational cannabis purchases, while medical sales stay at 7% excise tax. He hopes to put it before Oklahoma voters in the 2022 midterm elections, but not everyone wants it on a ballot. Representative Randy Randleman of Eufaula is a clinical doctor and child psychologist. He says medical marijuana eases anxiety and ADHD symptoms in some of his clients, but worries cannabis abuse can be detrimental to youth.
You have a tendency to overuse it. It can be more damaging.
Findings from a Colorado Department of Public Safety report show higher marijuana use in children and teens after the state fully legalized cannabis in 2012. The report also shows possible marijuana-related hospitalizations increased by almost 60%. Randleman says the plant is already slipping into kids' hands and cautions an abundance of bud brings along dangerous risk.
If we don't look at it the right way, I think that will kind of explode in a manner that's going to cause more problems within the family.
But the perception of great health risk from marijuana use is actually trending down in the Rocky Mountain state.
And points of contention like driving impaired caused by cannabis are practically unchanged, according to the study. But even the thought of a driver getting behind the wheel with THC in their system is enough to scare some off the road to recreational.
Right now, we don't have a reliable, economical way to test the level of THC that's affecting you as a person.
You have a tendency to not know where you are with it as far as the toxicability of it.
They have a hard time telling you whether you're inebriated or not.
But Fetgatter tells Two Works for You the pharmaceutical benefits and significant revenue stream are the driving force behind his cannabis caravan. He says potential health and safety hazards can be hashed out in the bill's final draft.
The one thing legislators agree on in the marijuana industry is the black market. Fetgatter told me, quote, "I want to be the first state in the union to figure out how to extinguish the black market." He hopes to have that accomplished in the next year. Mason Morrow, Two Works for You.
Test today at the state capitol over several bills lawmakers have written that would change medical marijuana rules. One bill would make it illegal for dispensaries to advertise on billboards. Another stops them from opening near churches. Some feel lawmakers are chipping away at the law voters approved. But what about legalizing recreational marijuana? Could that happen in Oklahoma? Channel 8's Stephen Seeley finds out if we're ready for that. Stephen?
Yeah, I spoke with a cancer survivor who used medical marijuana for treatment, and he says, in short, no, the state isn't ready for recreational use, and he and others agree. But we may not be as far off as we think. Medical marijuana holds a place in Raymond Jennings' heart. He says if it wasn't for it, he wouldn't have been able to survive cancer.
When I started using THC oil, my tumor started shrinking. And I did a complete turnover, 180-degree turnaround in my health and survival.
There's been a lot of focus on medical marijuana in the 18 months that it's been legal. So much that lawmakers have filed 30 bills to help regulate it. So what would happen if voters were to approve marijuana for everyone? Would we be ready?
My personal view, I think that, we're probably still a year, maybe two away from that.
And many people I talked to off camera agree, including some law enforcement. Rogers County Sheriff Scott Walton says the medical marijuana program was a train wreck from the start.
That Oklahoma state question was written so liberally that I don't think anybody will notice some drastic change between what people consider medical weed and recreational weed.
Walton thinks if the state were to implement recreational, then it puts other people's lives in danger, especially with people driving high.
By field sobriety tests, that the driver is obviously impaired. I think that's one of the things that we see the most of.
But two petitions disagree and are trying to get it on the ballot soon.
I really don't see it. I don't see the benefit of going out and having rec at this point.
Jennings says it's not that he doesn't want to see recreational marijuana happen. He wants to keep it medical for now.
Thank you.
Now, Jennings tells me that bringing in recreational use would be solely for financial gain. Now, both petitions need roughly 178,000 signatures to go through. Live, Stephen Seeley, Tulsa Channel 8.
Well, the old steel supply building across the Oklahoma River from Bricktown will reopen in August. Instead of steel, the building will house thousands of medical marijuana plants. Only News 9's Steve Shaw has the story. He is live at the Cox Convention Center. Shaw?
Kelly, Thursday and Friday, the Cox Convention Center will host Cannabis, which is basically Oklahoma City's medical marijuana convention. Cannabis will also introduce a massive 65,000 square foot indoor grow operation that will be known as Cola Organics.
Cola is an underground grower term. It is for the most elite, pristine nug in the entire canopy of the grow. This one right here is our pineapple cola. It's a great strain for an active person during the day. It's what I like to call your coffee type weed to get you going through the day.
Cola Organics president Bryce Davis is a hometown boy. He grew up in Duncan. He played football at UCO, then survived 3 years as a long snapper for Cincinnati and Pittsburgh in the NFL. Davis says after his playing career ended in 2014, there were difficult days. He says medical marijuana made them much better. He came back home from Oregon, where he was working in the industry, and convinced fellow investors not to turn the old Steel Supply Co. into a giant haunted house.
You're seeing 22 strains. Of the 22, we like 7.
Instead, he says Cola Organics will one day be the largest indoor grow operation in the state.
It's grown from a living soil that we make in-house from scratch. The soil itself stinks. It's got about 16 different ingredients in it, so when you pop open our bags from a dispensary, it should smack you in the face with aroma. I have personally witnessed terminal cancer patients, treat their terminal cancer with cannabis oil and be cancer-free.
Colo Organics will launch several products this Thursday and Friday. Live at the Cost Convention Center, Steve Shaw, Oklahoma's own News 9.
Okay, Steve.